Welcome to the Life Engineering Podcast. My name is Gabriela, former chemical engineer, relationship coach, and author. In each episode, we'll uncover the wisdom, strategies, and tools to help you build thriving relationships and purpose-driven careers. My wish is that something shared in this space touches your heart, brings clarity, or gently guides you toward what you need most in your life right now. Thank you for being here. Let's begin now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Life Engineering Podcast, where we explore ideas to inspire you to create a life of no regrets. I'm your host, Gabriela, and today I'm coming to you with a question. Are you feeling burnout or disconnected from your vitality? If you ever felt like you're managing life instead of living it, or that your vitality is just out of reach, this conversation will stir something deep in you. Today's episode is your invitation to pause, to listen, and begin again, this time from the inside out. And today's guest is Dr. Deborah Zucker. Welcome, Deborah. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Gabriela. Thank you so much.
So let me tell you a little bit about Deborah. Deborah is a naturopathic doctor, a mental health counselor, an award-winning author, and a living embodiment of inner leadership and healing. This word inner leadership, I want to talk more about that in a moment. Her journey through chronic illness, soul searching, motherhood, and entrepreneurship led her to design a life and a business rooted in deep vitality and radical self-honoring. Wow. So today, she's going to share how she engineered a new relationship with herself and how we can all learn to live with more alignment, compassion, and courage. Wow. This is a big promise for today. I'm so excited to have you, and I really want to start from the beginning because I know you went through a health crisis, Dr. Deborah, and this was a turning point that awakened the healer in you. So, can you take us back to that moment and how it changed the trajectory of your life?
Sure. Yes, I was in my early 20s
Oh, wow.
and I was actually living in a sustainable education center and doing all the things I knew to do to take good care of myself. But I ended up spiraling down into a deep fatigue, depression, lots of other symptoms that left me really baffled and also incapacitated to continue to move forward in my life in the way that I had been. And so it was a huge turning point for me. I had all these plans of what I thought I was going to be doing, and I was just beginning, to explore my work in the world. And then this happened. And instead, I found myself back living with my parents for a while and regrouping and exploring, the realm of health and medical care. And it began by looking at the physical symptoms and the initial diagnoses I was given. And yet that didn't fully land for me. It felt like it wasn't really getting at what was really going on for me. And so it sent me on a deeper journey of inner healing and exploration of all the different modalities that are out there to support our healing, which I'd never been exposed to before.
And
And
it was not your plan to become, as I read, a doctor in naturopathy, right?
no, not at all. Yeah, yeah. So it really evoked a new calling because I found that as I was in my own healing journey, I was wanting to share everything I was learning with other people. And so I just sort of took the leap and thought, okay, maybe this is my new path. And I jumped into it. And my own healing journey then paralleled my own professional learning. And even as I, embarked post graduation as a licensed doctor, I still was on that healing journey, and in many ways, still am today. It just keeps evolving in terms of my own self knowing and what it means to me to guide and care for myself through this life. And that becomes, more and more nuanced the older I get, and the more I work with others in their, unique journeys too.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, talking first of all for sharing your story and talking about the evolution itself, because I'm sure that the term vitality meant something completely different to you then that it means today. So, how would you see the evolution of what vitality means for you then and today?
Right. Well, I think then when I first found myself in this healing journey, because I grew up in the Midwest, I hadn't been exposed to any holistic healing. My orientation was pretty simplistic. It was really more about, yeah, feeling good and sort of not having disease or, it was sort of black and white, right? And as I've grown and evolved in my work and also in my own healing, I see it so much more nuanced that our vitality is really an expression of the life energy that's in all of us.
Mm.
And and it's about really aligning with what brings us alive, with who we're uniquely here to be, guiding and supporting, our unique expression and supporting the life that we're here to live. And that comes with the realities of the unexpectedness of life. For some of us, like myself, that might include a deeper journey with illness, and that being a catalyst to support our alignment and to support what it is we're here to bring. And for others, it's going to, include different loss in our life, or, just the unexpectedness of thinking that, we were going to have a child and that's not our path, or we are going to be married to this person for the rest of our life, but that's not our path. It's just life is full of unfolding, unexpected change. And our vitality is really, how do we support our resilience in the midst of all of that? And I hope I was able to articulate
Yeah,
just
I'm
of that.
no, you nailed it because I agree with you that I mean you're the expert, but I agree with that view that many people see health as the absence of illness,
Right.
right? But I know you're right. You wrote the book, The Vitality Map, and it invites your readers to look deeper,
Yeah.
right? What's missing from how we relate to health? It's not just the absence of illness. It's basically about alignment too, right? Because when we're in alignment, we receive also the most amount of vital force energy we can receive. I can tell you that it's so interesting. You say that I just said actually that for many people, vitality or health is the absence of illness. So I'll share with you a point of view that I heard. If you're missing a leg or an arm, God forbid, does it make you a healthy person? What makes you a healthy person? And I heard this perspective that I absolutely love, that a healthy person is a person that is able to carry their life mission.
Mm.
So if you have only one leg, but your life mission is to inspire people through your words, you're absolutely healthy,
Yeah.
right? If your life mission is to become a dancer, then you are not, obviously, if you're missing a leg. But should that make us think that sometimes we find excuses why we're not doing what we are here to do, but in fact, it's only in our head. We might be totally capable of continuing with our life mission the way our bodies are right now.
Mm-hmm. I so appreciate you bringing that up. And it reminds me of that Leonard Cohen quotation, it's the cracks that's where our light
Oh,
comes
you're
in.
talking to a Montrealer, so bring it on.
Yeah, yeah, that reorientation, because I think we can be so programmed that we're supposed to be a certain way and have these high expectations and perfectionism and all of that. But actually, to honor that it is our wounds, it is the hardships we face and how we relate to them and how they change us, that help to define who we are, and that really energize and clarify who we're, our mission, as you said, what our gifts are, and to let go of the idea of who we think we're supposed to be. And, and that goes for our relationship with our self-care too, because so many of us have this long to-do list that we categorize as my self-care to-dos. We might not even be conscious of it like that, but we create this pressure and expectation of all the things we're supposed to be doing to keep ourselves healthy. And the very relationship we have with that can be very unhealthy, creating stress, creating this burden, and keeping us in this box that confines where our life energy actually wants to go and how it actually is nourished. And so, in my teachings and my work with clients, I really like to help to just take the lid off, help us to ground into that foundational relationship with what it is to care for this unique life we are, with reverence and honor and love and care. And from that deep listening, from that place, to really listen to what is it that lights us up? What is it that we're uniquely here to bring? What is it that supports our well-being? And it's going to be different for everyone. But to actually have our relationship with guiding ourselves in our life and caring for ourselves be a joyful one, be one that is full of that sense of honor and a mission itself, right? That's sort of the deepest mission there is to care for this body and being so that we can shine out in the world in the way that we're uniquely here to do.
So you were referring to the work you do with your clients. How do you exactly guide them out of that managerial mindset per se of self-care into something that is more integrated?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a deeper journey. In my book, I go through these 9 keys that I consider to be kind of a deep repatterning of how we relate to ourselves, how we orient towards self-care. The first one is honoring.
Take us through those.
Yeah, yeah, I'll just kind of briefly touch into them, but the first one is honoring your unique life, which is what I was just kind of speaking to at the very base, like really being in relationship with our lives from a place of reverence and honoring, getting that no one else but here is, no one else but us is here to guide and tend to this unique life. And excuse me. And yeah, we don't know how long we're going to be here, to be in direct relationship with our mortality and to not take this life for granted. So that's kind of the starting point. And then the second key is facing and embracing your shadows. And that is it's a huge missing piece in the conversation around our relationship with self-care, because it acknowledges that all of us in our own way are sort of operating with these unconscious parts running the show. So if you've ever experienced yourself do something that's sort of like a self-sabotage or avoidance pattern, it's like you have this intention of what you want to be doing and you can't seem to actually make the changes you seek. There's shadow parts at play. So addressing those and a lot of times that requires professional support to have that attending to see what we can't see and to come into relationship with those parts that's loving and kind and accepting so that they're integrated into who we are and they're no longer running the show in the shadows like they have been. And the third key is strengthening your self-awareness muscles.
So how do we do that?
Yeah, so that is a practice of attention. And this is an acknowledgement, that there's some basic life skills we weren't taught. And this is one of them, to actually become an intimate observer of ourselves, to understand the feedback that's there all the time that is actually guiding ourselves towards what supports our thriving and what doesn't. But it's like a language we haven't learned. And so doing that, it's sort of like a meditation practice, like a life meditation practice, where we just bring our curious, observing mind and notice, okay, like today I'm going to observe what happens to my energy throughout the day. Okay. After breakfast, it goes down a little bit and then it goes up again later. In the afternoon, it's the lowest, just watching what our unique patterns are. And then once we observe and we get that kind of data for ourselves, then we can begin to explore what are the things that are influencing that maybe that feedback is pointing us towards. So that's just one simple example. but our whole life is kind of open for that curious orientation to learn more about ourselves and what supports our vitality. Yeah.
So you share with us 3, and there are 9.
There's 9. Do you want me to keep going? I could. I didn't want to just
Well,
keep
it's up
talking.
to you if you want, or you want to leave the audience with a taste for more, and just grab your book, obviously. Um, it's really up to you. Or maybe we can incorporate the others as we talk about. There's a topic that I really want to ask you about because it seems to be a pandemic today, and it's the topic of burnout. And I also heard somebody, an MD, talking about burnout and talking about different types of burnout. That we can have emotional burnout, physical burnout, mental burnout, and she was talking about other types. And sometimes we think the solution is to sleep. But if what you have is emotional burnout, that's not necessarily going to help. So, you know, you built a meaningful business, right? Helping people maximize their potential, their vitality. But you also live through cycles of burnout yourself.
Yes.
Take us there. What are the red flags that vitality is fading? What should we pay attention to? And how can business owners, entrepreneurs reconnect to what fuels them?
I'm so glad you
I
brought this.
I said too much, so take whatever you want from. Just share whatever you want about burnout. We'll be happy to hear.
Yes. Well, it's so important. And I'm so glad you brought that front and center because it is an epidemic right now. And it's certainly been part of my journey and my healing, from the chronic fatigue in my 20s to later on cycles of burnout as well. And yeah, I like you said, there are different aspects to burnout and different forms of it. But I think one thing that I see in common overall is when there's a lack of alignment. And this gets to key number 5. So, key number 5 is aligning with your yes. And so that lack of alignment can look like not heeding and listening to those nudges of what actually is our yes, what is aligned. And maybe we've been told we can't do it, or society says it's impossible, or it's too risky, or whatever the voices inside us are saying. So we're not stepping into that alignment of that yes. And it can also be the flip side is that we are putting our life energy towards things that aren't aligned. And so when we do that, it's like our life energy is just going down the hole in the bucket. What we want is to invest our energy where we get returns. So it just cycles back and feeds us as we're pouring our energy and heart into those things that are aligned for us. It feeds us back. It fills our own well. But when it's not aligned, we lose that energy. And so I like to talk about the analogy of pruning your life and how absolutely vital it is. So I use the analogy of pruning because if you think about a fruit tree, if you don't regularly prune it, it's going to stop producing fruit, right?
Of course.
And yeah, and it's like instead there are these branches called sucker branches that go straight up from the top of the tree and like they don't produce any fruit. So you're going to get all these sucker branches where the energy is going, and then the tree is not going to be flourishing. It's not going to be producing what it's here to be bringing to the world, and bringing that back to each of us, tuning into what needs to be pruned from our lives. And sometimes it's a little snip, throughout our days. And sometimes it's big branches that we are invested in that really are not supporting our well-being. And if we engage in that way for long enough, burnout results. And we find ourselves stuck and in this rut. And sometimes it can be confusing because on the surface, it can seem like, oh, like I'm doing all this good in the world, or I'm caring for all these people and I feel well valued. And yet I'm exhausted. And there can be thoughts like, what about me? Or like something has to give here. Like there's no room, for me caring for me in the midst of this situation. And in a society, that really kind of supports a martyr complex and supports the idea of caring for others before we care for ourselves. Again, it can be a deeper repatterning that's needed to get that each of us needs to support our own flourishing in order to show up in service, whatever our calling is, whatever it is that we're doing, whoever we're caring for.
Absolutely. And that's the inner leadership as well that you talk about. I know you talk about that in your book. Well, thank you for saying that. I guess in a way, perhaps for some people, this sounds like the permission they need to do that. Right?
Yes, I
Because like
hope.
you said, we're programmed to put everybody first. And sometimes, even though we don't need permission, right? But we feel we do. So I think it was very spot on what you said. Now, going back to um, inner leadership,
Mm.
um, you made bold, unconventional life choices. You know, you did a career pivot, you sought of fertility, pausing your professional identity. Uh, how did you cultivate the self trust to lead yourself through these seasons? And,
Mm.
you know, and how did you manage societal expectations? You know, it's about honoring yourself, but it's not, I'm assuming it's not always easy,
No,
yet
no.
crucial. So, can you take us through that process?
Hmm. I think one of the gifts of becoming ill at the life stage that I was I learned some of those lessons kind of early on of just it sort of brought to the forefront like I had no choice. Like I, in order to regain my energy, I had to learn how to honor myself, how to listen for that alignment inside, and to have the courage to choose the balance and the life path that actually worked for me. Because I kept learning, part of my path is like after I was a licensed physician, I had another round of chronic fatigue. And that was very much like I was choosing a version of being a doctor that was not aligned for me. And I spiraled down again. So I think out over repeated times in my life, I learned the lesson, and it brought an inner courage and trust with that. And I think another piece that I learned, not super early in my healing journey, but along the way, was how incredibly vital community and relational support was. That I couldn't go it alone. I couldn't be in the healing journey. I couldn't always have the discernment and the reflection on my own to find my way. And that learning of how vital that relational support is has informed my work. Like I am incredibly passionate about creating community spaces for my programs where there's not only support from me, but there's the mutuality between others, because it's like we need each other. And in our current reality and in this culture we're grounded in, it's like we've lost a lot of that. And we can feel isolated and not even realize, how much we need that support until we find ourselves in that kind of embrace and realize like, oh my God, it's so much easier now. I can actually actualize the changes I seek. I can get more clarity without feeling lost for years. And that comes from having the reflection and deep listening and caring, holding from others so that we're not alone.
Yeah, I was in a podcast early today, and I just said that I feel like we have a crisis of connection.
Yeah.
Even though we are more interconnected than ever before through technology, we have a crisis of connection within ourselves. We're talking
Yes.
about self leadership too, uh, with our creator, whatever you believe in, and with with our partners, with our children, and communities. And yeah, the need for community. And we felt that this week when we spent a week at the hospital. We just got a whole new view on community and support and the difference it makes. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
We even got drawings from children at school saying,
Oh,
"We wish you well, get better." And I cannot tell you the difference it made for us. It was, yeah, you get to appreciate, um, yeah, in a complete different way the strength that other people can give you.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Tell us more about those circles of women you run and the community and the support women can find.
Hmm. Yeah, I have some different offerings. My signature program is a 9-month program for women called Vital You. And we meet in person 4 times for retreats, and then there's virtual support in between. And it's, yeah, just a deep dive. We start off with the 9 keys that we've been touching into today, and then go into, yeah, mini vision quest style retreat and deep relational support and really kind of holding that deeper journey of the repatterning that I was talking about with our relationship with self-care and really living like we each matter. And I also have virtual women's circles and programs, and I do offer some one-on-one coaching as well. But my passion is bringing groups together.
So, what's one of the most extraordinary transformations you've seen um,
Hmm.
in your circles?
Well, that's that's a hard question. You know, yeah, it's really, because it's so much of it's in that subtle, like inner journey.
Mhm.
And then, there's the outer manifestation. So I could list, yeah, people quitting their jobs and sort of finding their way, having the courage to step into their own business or leaving a relationship that was toxic for them. So there's those kind of outward big changes. And then but what I really feel like the deepest transformation is that inner shift towards really being grounded in loving ourselves, like not just giving lip service to it, but actually living day to day from that place where our choices are coming from a loving, kind orientation towards ourselves, where we have our own back and we're living like we really matter and we're not putting everyone else first. Like we're first, and that's allowing us to really show up and serve and be the brightest version of ourselves. So that to me is the biggest transformation, and it's shows up outwardly in all the different ways it does, but
That's
um,
right.
that's what I
The
hope for us all.
focus. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So, what can you offer to someone who's struggling with honoring themselves, treating themselves with kindness because maybe nobody ever did,
yeah,
um, honoring their truth when it doesn't match what people expect from them? What can they
yeah.
start doing?
Hmm. Yeah, that deeper journey with facing and embracing your shadows can be a huge one for beginning to explore that, because oftentimes when we've come from a background, as so many of us have, where we were very imperfectly loved and not held and tended to in our young years as we needed to be, and not seen for our uniqueness and supported and finding who we are uniquely. Um, we have internalized those outward voices, whether they're from a mom or a dad or teachers or even just the broader culture that tells us who we're supposed to be. It's like those voices get internalized into parts, and we're kind of listening to them for our guidance. And until we start turning towards those parts and getting, that they're doing their best to protect us, right? They're doing their best to protect us and keeping us from getting hurt, because that's what those parts do. They want to keep us from getting hurt again. They're also having us operate out of our own alignment and integrity. And as a result, yeah, unable to turn towards ourselves with love and kindness. And so attending to those parts, turning towards them with curiosity and a welcoming energy to understand them, welcome them in, but also stop giving them the power and the authority to tell us what our truth is. That is a huge start towards beginning to be able to love ourselves so that we're not identified with that anymore. And and then, a practice of really looking at each day. I had a practice years ago, and I'm not saying others should do this, but to find your own version of it, where it's like each morning I'd be like, if I were to die today, would I feel complete?
Mhm.
And there was something about that question for me that just brought an immediacy of the fleeting nature of life and not taking each day for granted, just really being present to that day and attending to what needed attending to, having the courage to reach out and express the things that were unexpressed and to show up, with the fullness of my awareness as I could each day. And that really began, to cultivate more fully for me, just that orientation of like, um, yeah, just I'm here to care for this being that I am, and I'm going to do the best I can, not from a should, but just because, wow, how amazing, whatever life is bringing me, how amazing to be alive and in a body right now, to be me, to be conscious of being me, just to bring that kind of awake awareness as a practice to each day.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. It's beautiful. It's simple, and yet we forget.
Of course, yeah, we forget.
We forget. Wisdom
Yes,
is simple, right?
right. Exactly. That's what I say. Like my 9 keys, like on one level, are incredibly simple and they seem like, oh, of course. But to actually learn to live it day to day, to shift at that deeper level, how we're orienting towards ourselves and our lives is huge. And it is a practice. And it's not like you just, flip a switch and then suddenly you're there. It's a day to day practice, ongoing. But it does get easier once you really start feeling what that feels like to live from that place.
Yeah.
It becomes more the habitual place to come back to.
What I was going to ask you, what's one practice you return to when you need to reconnect to your vitality? Is there
Hmm.
another one, or is the one that you mentioned?
I mean, a huge one for me in my daily life is being out in nature.
Mhm.
I just like when I'm out in nature, going for a walk, like, yeah, it's just that's my best meditation practice. It just brings me right back to that openness and that presence and just the vitality around me infuses my own
That's
vitality.
right.
And yeah, and just brings me back to what really matters. It takes me out of the busyness and the fullness and the swirl of all the things, I'm supposed to be doing or who I'm supposed to be, and just resets me.
It's the other day I went for a walk, and I needed that vitality. As I was saying, we were recovering from the surgery, and it's and I decided not to put headphones, just to be present with whatever was going on. So as I'm walking, I'm talking to my creator, um, and I live by the water too. I live by the river, so it's really, really special. And a bird pooped, and the bird pooped right next to me, but it missed me by a millimeter. Like, and then I could hear that was saying, "You saw that? That was me. You think I'm not there? I'm there. If I
Yes.
it missed you because I wanted it to miss you for you to understand I'm controlling everything."
Mhm. I love that. I love that so much. And just yeah, just to open into that connection. And I've had a practice that I've come to call my morning meetings, where I go out, and that's how I start my work day, is going for a hike in nearby woods. And I've come to call it my morning meeting because inevitably I just go out with kind of an openness that inspiration or creative ideas, or it's going to flow through and I'll get insights on next steps. And even if like I get halfway through the hike and nothing's coming, I'm just like, I've just come to trust like something's going to come through. And I just keep just hiking and being present. And yes, like that's where like, yeah, I wrote both my books that way, like through voice memos of things that just came, and I designed programs that way, and just like have the clarity of who to reach out to or what's next, and just that download
That's
that
my
that
download.
brings. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Wow. So much wisdom in your words, in your shares, in your practice. And if the listeners could walk away with one truth from your journey, uh, what would you want that to be? If they remember one thing.
Hmm. Live like you matter.
Mm,
Live like you matter. Yeah,
because you do.
you do. Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. I absolutely love that. Of course you matter. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, right?
Mm. Yes, yes.
There's so much peace in your words, so much allowance, surrender, and wisdom. I want to thank you dearly for sharing your wisdom. Um, so you talk a little bit about your groups and the way that you support these women. Could you tell us where people can connect with you?
Yeah, my website is vitalmedicine.com. And yeah, you'll see all my programs there.
And
And
where can they find your book?
my book is, yeah, you can find it on Amazon or order it through any bookstore. It's The Vitality Map.
You
Yeah.
know that I was in an episode interviewing Dan Bowling, actually, CEO of an incredible company. I forgot now the name. As you can see, I have an issue with names. And he mentioned you.
Hmm.
He was talking about leadership and
Hmm.
what it is to be a CEO from a place of true service. And he actually mentioned you and your book.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm really
And
touched.
then we connected. I was like, wow, okay.
Alignment. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Deborah, for again for sharing so much and giving us so much value. And thank you to our listeners for being here today. Whether you're navigating your own healing, reevaluating your relationship with your work, or seeking a deeper connection with yourself, may this episode be a gentle nudge back to your center. And again, if today's conversation sparks something for you, share this episode with a friend who may need it. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channels, whether it's audio or YouTube. We really appreciate it. And until next time, keep engineering a life that's not just successful, but soulfully aligned. Bye for now.